Hello and welcome to SPSS Class 2, starting from S46. Now we got the data after all that work into SPSS, it's really easy to do this analysis. This time the chart builder is fine, it's really easy for scatter graphs. So we'll just go to scatters. And the reason we're using scatters is that we have just so many scale variables. We're just looking for relationships between these numbers, and scatters and correlation coefficients are the way to go for this as a first look. So graphs, chart builder. Oh, it's going to slow now. There it is. Just grab the scatter graph, straightforward one, drag that to there. And you just drag what you want to have on each axis. So I want to have GDP per capita on the x-axis, and then see how that's related to various things, like how's it related to poverty, put poverty on the y-axis there, and boom. Something should happen. You want to do it. There we go. That's what we get from there. Okay, we'll just do the other two charts, and to get the other two charts, we can just bring it back again, get rid of that poverty rate, bring in the 320 poverty rates. Bang, there's the chart. That, and then bring in the $5.50 poverty rates instead. Okay, and that's what you get for that, and then bring in the other health variable, life expectancy. Okay, and then the final health variable is child infant mortality. Okay, so let's see what the evidence tells us. Well, the evidence here tells us that the very wealthy countries, the level of poverty at below $2 a day is extremely low. And for the very poorest countries, some of those are very high, so really high here. So it seems to be a clear, though very non-linear connection, that in countries that now are very poor, there's much higher levels of poverty, and as you go to the countries that are wealthy, there's lower and lower levels. It tails off quite sharply. If you look at the $3.20 a day, slightly more persistent, but still tails very sharply. And the $5 a day, again, slightly more persistent because that's a higher threshold to get people over the $5.50 a day. But even so, by the time you get to 2,000 or 20,000 a year, 40,000 a year, 60,000 a year, that's completely disappeared. We'll look in a minute at ways of making that clearer. This one's probably the clearest, the scatter graph of life expectancy, that as a mean per capita income in the country increases, as per capita income increases, life expectancy goes up very sharply at first and then tails off slightly. So there's huge gains in life expectancy to be won, according to this, from moving from very low levels of income to slightly high levels of income. And finally, here shows another negative relationship between infant mortality and income. So as you go into richer countries at the moment, then the infant mortality gets lower, dramatically lower, down towards this level here. So the evidence seems to suggest that there are things that we think are good, like life expectancy go up when in richer countries, and things that we don't like, infant mortality and poverty, go down with increasing income. Of course, it doesn't show anything about causality, but what causes this to happen, but it shows there does seem to be some sort of pattern. It also doesn't show us what's happening over time, really. It's just saying that at the moment, because it's cross-section, at the moment the countries that are poorer have got more of these bads like poverty and fewer of the goods like life expectancy compared to richer countries. It doesn't necessarily mean that if they become richer, then the same thing would happen to them. That's something we have to talk about and decide whether we think that's likely to happen or not. You can't tell it straight from the evidence. It also doesn't show why you see this connection, what's causing what. Like perhaps it's decreasing poverty itself causes the economic growth because more people have disposable income and more people are healthy and able to work and so on. So there could be feedback mechanisms in both directions. But it does show us there's some sort of correlation at least. Talking of correlation, instead of just looking at scatters, we can put numbers on these things by getting some correlation coefficients, as it says in part 48. Gosh, 48. So we go back to the analyze dialog, look for bivariate, or no, correlations to start with, and then bivariate correlations like so. And this is really nice because like it's so simple. It only shows you the scale variables, the numbers. So you just grab a whole bunch, stick them into there, and press OK, and you're off. And you get all the possible correlations at once. So you can just look at GDP per capita, go along the top row. This is the thing we're looking at, the Pearson correlation coefficient. So -1 would mean perfect negative correlation, and so on. +1, perfect positive, 0, 0. So negative, so it's a negative correlation, 0.3, so it's reasonably moderately strong. I mean, there's definitely something there in terms of connection. And it means the negative means that the higher this gets per capita consumption, or per capita income, the lower poverty gets at this level, even stronger here and even stronger here. So poverty clearly is falling at all of these thresholds. Life expectancy positive, and 0.6 is quite a strong positive correlation. So clearly, as you increase GDP, there's an association of that with longer life expectancy and decreasing infant mortality. So a lot of these you can see here the same connection between GDP and other variables. But once you've got this matrix of connections, you can see connections between other things directly that aren't related to per capita income. So, for instance, poverty at the $190 level is extremely strongly correlated with poverty at the $320 and the $550 levels, as you'd imagine it would be. But also it's negatively correlated with life expectancy. That countries with more poverty, lower life expectancy. Again, you might expect that. Countries with more poverty, higher infant mortality. Again, you might expect that. So you can see that these are giving you a similar message to the scatter graphs, but they're putting a number measuring their correlation. So yes, that's what you'd expect. And you can relate all of these to the graphs that you've seen. Finally, just as this correlation matrix is a way of looking at all the different possible relationships in one go, you can do a similar thing with the, as it says in 47, you can do a similar thing with the scatter graphs. Instead of drawing one by one, you can go to the graph builder. Probably have to reset it. And on the scatter graphs, choose this thing instead. And just dump all the, only put the scale variables in, because you can't really do a correlation with the country. And that, nothing else to click. Oh, great. You get this really nice thing. Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, so it's, you've got, in a glance there, you have all the possible correlations. So, for example, this one is life expectancy against GDP. This is poverty against GDP. The three poverty ones against GDP there, life expectancy and infant mortality. These really strong ones in the middle are like poverty with poverty. Different measures of poverty very strongly correlated. This one here, interestingly, is life expectancy and poverty. Basic correlation. So you can see at a glance where there's some connections that might be significant or might be real connections between things that are showing you something interesting. Okay, so really that's officially and formally that's the last video. I've just put an extra thing on there for people that want to know a bit more about how to deal with income being very unfairly and skewly distributed in the last section, but that's only look at that if you want to and if you're confident in maths. But for now, that's the end of the session, so thanks for watching.